All right, let's talk about the incredible life of Oscar Wilde. We're going to explore his amazing rise, his absolutely tragic fall, and his legacy, which, wow, just keeps getting bigger. And we'll be looking at it all through the eyes of someone who deeply admires him, the one and only Stephen Fry.
So let's start with this line because it's just perfect. I have nothing to declare except my genius. He actually said this to a U.S. customs official. It just captures everything about him, right? That incredible wit, the confidence, really the sheer performance that was Oscar Wilde. And this was long before he'd even written his most famous stuff. Now, to really understand Wilde's downfall, you first have to appreciate the insane heights from which he fell. I mean, he didn't just show up in Victorian society. He basically exploded into it.
And you really can't overstate the contrast here. Think about the Victorian era. It was all about being serious, proper, those stuffy black frock coats. Then, into this world walks Oscar Wilde. He was like this vibrant, dazzling butterfly, all color and light and brilliant contradictions, with what Stephen Fry so perfectly calls magical speech.
And here's the wild part. Before he wrote The Importance of Being Earnest or Dorian Gray, Wilde was already a huge deal. He was celebrated not for what he wrote, but for how he dressed, how he talked. His whole personality was revolutionary. He was pretty much one of the first people to be famous, just for being famous.
This quote, it tells you everything you need to know about his philosophy. Someone asks him about his life's ambition, and he doesn't say, power or money. He says his ambition is to live up to his collection of blue and white china. In an age obsessed with industry and empire, that was such a radical thing to say. It was a declaration that art and beauty mattered more than anything else. But this incredible, sparkling ascent was on a direct collision course with tragedy. And it was all sparked by one single, all-consuming relationship. And that tragedy had a name, Lord Alfred Douglas, or Bosie, as everyone called him. He was this young, gorgeous aristocrat, and Wilde just fell head over heels. This relationship became the great passion of his life. It would inspire some of his greatest work, and in the end, it would absolutely destroy him. I mean, just listen to the intensity in those words. You can feel it. This wasn't just some casual affair. It was this epic, passionate romance. And he expressed it in language that was so beautiful and so open that to the rest of Victorian England, it was literally a crime. And of course, every great tragedy needs a villain. Enter Bosie's father, the Marquis of Queensberry. This guy was famously brutish, came from a family known for its violent temper, and he just despised Wilde. He saw him as this corrupting influence on his son and became absolutely obsessed with ruining him. So you have this showdown brewing, Queensberry's brute force against Wilde's brilliant defiance. And it was all going to play out in the courts, leading to one of the most infamous trials in literary history. And wow, did it all unravel fast. Queensberry leaves this insulting, deliberately misspelled calling card for Wilde. Bosie, in a rage, convinces Wilde to sue him for libel, which was a catastrophic mistake. Queensberry's lawyers dig up witnesses, the case completely collapses, and almost overnight, Wilde goes from being the one suing to the one being arrested. So what did they get him on? This incredibly vague, nasty piece of legislation. Gross indecency could mean pretty much anything they wanted it to mean. It was basically a weapon, just sitting there waiting for a target like Wilde, designed to punish men simply for who they loved in private. The judge's words at the sentencing are just bone-chilling. Stephen Fry points out that this same judge had recently presided over a child murder trial, and yet he called Wilde's case, a case about love between two consenting adults, the worst he had ever seen. It just shows you the sheer depth of the hatred society had for him. So the sentence comes down 2 years of hard labor, the absolute maximum. It was brutal, spirit-crushing work. The butterfly was well and truly broken on the wheel. His health was shattered, his reputation destroyed, even his children were taken away from him. Wilde died in 1900, totally broke and despised, in exile in Paris. And for a while, it really looked like that was the end of the story. His enemies had won. But, as Stephen Fry explains, history had a pretty stunning twist in store. Stephen Fry uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor to describe what happened to Wilde's legacy. Imagine you're driving past a huge skyscraper, right? Like the Empire State Building. For a brief moment, smaller, closer buildings can completely block it from your view.
But as you drive further away, those little buildings shrink back down, and that giant skyscraper just rockets back into view, bigger than ever. So all those people who brought him down, the judge, the lawyers, the powerful people who condemned him, Fry calls them the pygmies. And let's be honest, who remembers any of them now? They've just faded into complete obscurity, like those little buildings by the side of the road. And as those pygmies vanished from view, Wilde's true stature was finally revealed. He didn't just survive his critics, he grew. He launched back into our collective view like that skyscraper, becoming this undeniable, towering figure in our cultural landscape. But that begs the question, right? Why? Why has this man, who was so completely and utterly crushed by his own society, grown into such a giant for ours? What is it that he gave us that's so important? Well, Fry points to a fascinating cultural shift he's noticed over the years. He talks about how, back in the day, the posters you'd see on student dorm room walls were always political revolutionaries, Che Guevara, Karl Marx. But now, he says the two most common are titans of the mind, Albert Einstein and Oscar Wilde. And that's not just a change in decoration. It points to this really profound shift in where we place our hope. We don't really believe anymore that the world is going to be saved by political revolutions. Instead, we have this new belief. If we're going to be saved, it will come from intellectual freedom, from creativity, from the life of the mind itself. And it was Wilde, writing from the absolute lowest point of his life, in that soul-bearing prison letter, De Profundis. It was there that he perfectly defined what that life of the mind really is. So when you boil it all down, after the fame, the love, the trial, the tragedy, what is the essential gift that he left behind for us? What makes him more important now than maybe ever before? It's this, the ability to play gracefully with ideas. That's his ultimate legacy. It's not just the witty one-liners or his brilliant plays, it's this ideal. In a world that feels like it's getting more and more rigid, more dogmatic, Oscar Wilde stands as this incredible symbol, a martyr even, for intellectual freedom, for curiosity, and for the simple, profound, and magnificent ability to just play.